This episode of the MSP Chat podcast is brought to you by Cypher, the vendor on a mission to redefine the cybersecurity landscape through pioneering innovation. Cypher's flagship Genesis deep learning AI penetration testing software revolutionizes cybersecurity assessments and ethical hacking, empowering IT professionals to meet rising pen test demand at prices end users can afford with unprecedented efficiency and accuracy. Unlike scripted solutions, Genesis Deep Learning AI offers advanced identification of both known vulnerabilities and unknown exploits, and its brand new integration with Acronis Cyber Protect Cloud takes cybersecurity management to a whole new level, enabling users to run pen tests, view alerts, and manage machines directly from the Acronis platform. Plus, Cypher offers a cost-effective, no-contract subscription model and sells exclusively through managed service providers and managed security service providers. Visit Cypher.ai to learn more. That's SXIPHER.ai and tell them MSP Chat sent you. And 3, 2, 1, blast off, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this sponsored bonus episode of the MSP Chat podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. I said weekly, but as I also said, this is a bonus episode brought to you by our friends at Cypher. And we will be talking with some of the senior executives there a little bit later in the show. Until then, my name is Rich Freeman. I am the Chief Content Officer and Channel Analyst at Channel Mastered, the organization responsible for this podcast. I am joined, as I am on every episode of the show, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, our Chief Strategist at Channel Mastered. Eric, how you doing?
Doing well, Rich. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Something just occurred to me right now, Eric, which is that, we work at Channel Master. We run that fine organization. Red is sort of our color at Channel Master. And very often when we do this show, as folks who watch on YouTube know, you are wearing a red shirt and I am always wearing black. But I'm not getting into the right spirit of the show here. Maybe I need to do something about this.
I don't know, Rich. I like you as the man in black. I do. And yes, for the days that we record this show, I do wear a red shirt. I just think, and I've always been impressed by seeing you on podcasts. And, Rich, we've done podcasts for years before the MSP Chat podcast together. And you always had kind of this, the man in black persona. And I really like it. And I thought, hey, you know what? Red is kind of the theme color, one of our theme colors at Channel Mastered. So maybe I'll adopt the persona in red. We'll offset each other that way.
I like it. Okay, yeah. I had not realized there was that much strategy behind it, but it's a very wise strategy, so I like it. Good
Awesome
stuff. Well, as I said, this bonus episode of the show is sponsored by Cypher. We're going to have an interview with Christoph Reglot, the CEO, and Lisa Bryant, the CRO of that company, coming up. Until then, let's dive right into our story of the show, I will call it, Eric. And as we were recording this, it's just been a few days since I got back home to Seattle from an event I attended in Dallas last week. And interesting show. It was sponsored by an organization called The 20. I won't get too deep into who they are or what they do, although it is an interesting company for people to research on their own. But what we're going to talk about here was inspired by a particular session at that event. And it was a presentation given by a guy named Barrett Kingswriter. He is the senior managing director at a company called Pinecrest Capital Partners. Pinecrest sort of works with MSPs who are looking to sell and private equity companies chiefly that are looking to buy, and he kind of plays that middle person advisory kind of role. But he's very much got his finger on the pulse of the M&A landscape in managed services right now. And he got an interesting question from an MSP in the audience. Because as you well know, Eric, there are two schools of thought among MSPs out there about the merits of going with I'll call it best of breed tool set, particular tools you like in different categories for various reasons, and then you have to kind of figure out how to integrate those to the best ability that you can, versus going with more of a pre-integrated kind of tool set, whether it's from one vendor or from multiple vendors. And it's an apt topic for us to be talking about, Eric, because one of the things we're going to get into with the folks from Cipher a little bit later in the show is an integration that Cipher and its pen test platform is announcing with Acronis. So it kind of got me thinking about integrations. And the question from this MSP in the audience last week was, what is the exit price, the sale price impact for an MSP of having that more tightly integrated tool set, as opposed to one that's reasonably integrated, but only as best as you can do in a best of breed kind of environment? And according to Barrett Kingsrider, one expert's opinion, I haven't had a chance to test this out with other people I know. Um, Having that integrated tool set is going to get you on average, 20% higher price. And he was kind of thinking about this specifically in terms of if you are selling to one of these roll-ups or one of these private equity kind of firms. They're very interested in efficiency. They are mindful of the fact that if you are juggling multiple pricing models and multiple tool sets, and you've got to train your technicians on all of these different tools, that there's just a lot of overhead and inefficiency associated with that. And the MSPs who are the most integrated, not just in terms of the tools, but really in terms of everything that they do, are easier to onboard, more efficient, faster to profitability than the others. And because it takes some more time to work with those less integrated acquisitions, they're essentially the acquirers are taking that cost out of their acquisition price. So I'm not going to say, I'll be very curious to get your point of view on this, Eric. I'm not going to go ahead and advise MSPs that no matter how much you love best of breed, you really need to be going with a tightly integrated set of tools from one or from several vendors. But it is a food for thought kind of discovery, to the extent that Barrett Kingsrider, Pinecrest Capital Partners is right, and there's a 20% premium out there for the companies that are more closely integrated. It's just something that you have to factor into some of the decisions you're making about how you run the business.
Well, Rich, my initial kind of thought as I was listening to you begin the topic was, wow, that's a pretty big differentiator. And then as I started pondering it, listening to how you continued to share your perspective on sitting in this session and listening to this, M&A expert, I thought that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And then I thought, so my mind is racing today, right? So then I thought, well, you know what? People, it's the experience that you deliver to your clients, as well as the efficiency and ability to perform at a much higher level internally, that are the benefits of this in profitability for the MSP. But the experience that you deliver to your clients and their end users should be consistent and at a high level. And I kind of thought, well, we've all been to dentists in our lives, right, Rich? And you've been to some dentists where you're like, never going back to that dentist again because the experience was not, the best. And then you find someone that you really kind of like enjoy, right? And you say, okay, this is it for me. Or maybe, use gyms and things like that. I've been to this gym. I didn't like it that much, but I like this gym. I like the experience. It's very consistent. I know what to expect. So a couple of things happen here when we are integrating these systems and solutions at a very high level. It is much more efficient and easy for technicians to do their job, driving profit to the bottom line. It also helps eliminate churn and keeps employees on longer. It helps eliminate, if we're delivering consistent experiences to our clients, because we're not having to put it together on the fly, right? And swag it when we're solving issues. Like, they have a consistent experience. It helps eliminate or reduce churn with clients and helps grow that lifetime value. And so I've got to think that there are all these other things that someone that is considering buying an MSP or rolling up an MSP already know about that. Probably, the expert on on stage didn't have time to get into, but I can just think of probably three or four more things that are definite benefits that are measurable because of tighter integrations. And I guess if I were in the audience, Rich, a follow-on question might have been, how important is it from a valuation perspective or from an attractiveness perspective that the selling MSP is actually using the similar tool sets of all the other MSPs that are being rolled up, right? That's got to be very important as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely certain that gets factored into the sale price as well. Because again, the acquirer is going to go out and complete a transaction. They're going to spend money, and then they're going to integrate, onboard this acquired company with the other MSPs they already own. And if it so happens that the company they're acquiring already uses the tools everybody else is using, that's a lot easier and less expensive. If you've got to complete, and my guess is a lot of the time you've got to completely replatform that acquired company, and it takes a while. And that some of that cost is going to come out of the sale price. So, so I don't know, and I mean, I certainly wouldn't say that standardizing on a name brand platform is necessarily going to get you a better exit price, but I'm sure that kind of an issue does factor into that a little bit. I gotta say, it's super interesting. Sometimes your days just fall together like this. You were talking about the user experience, the end user experience benefits of having an integrated tool set. And just a few hours ago, I had a chance to interview Chris Day, formerly the CEO of IT Glue. He was just, as we're recording this, named the CEO of ScalePad, and they have a big integration initiative coming up as we're recording this right now. And that was the thing that he kind of went straight to. Is he said a lot of vendors in our industry are focused on the MSP experience because it's the MSPs who are buying tools from the vendor. But their big focus at ScalePad is going to be the end user and the end user experience and the improvements in that end user experience made possible by integrated tools and this sort of integration initiative that they have going over there. So it's just interesting to hear you kind of come up with that and echo what they were saying. There are end user benefits to integration in terms of the speed with which tickets get closed and the degree of painfulness or painlessness of that process and so on. And it's easy to overlook.
Yeah, and I think just to tag in on a pivot point there, MSPs make their decisions on who they partner with from a vendor relationship. In my experience, Rich, based on like these first three check boxes and then the next three check boxes. But the first three check boxes are led by, because is it good for my clients? That is the first sniff test. Is like, hey, is this platform, is this integration, are these bundles of solutions, whatever it is that I'm evaluating, are they good for my end clients, end customers, end users? If that box gets checked, the next box, Rich, is it good for my team, my technical staff? I'm trying to reduce some of this sprawl and some of this inefficiency and things like that. Is it better? Is it good for my team? Is it easy to deploy? Is it easy to manage? Does it integrate with all the platforms? We've talked about this kind of stuff on the podcast before, Rich. And then the third checkbox typically as well, how much money can I make? How easy is it to make money? How much gross profit can I drop? Can I drop to the bottom line? And how can I scale it and grow? And if we can get past those three, then there's several other ones, that we've talked about on the show before that I won't get into here. But absolutely, that end user experience, just like I said, I mean, we make decisions as individuals on, the kinds of cars we drive, the dealerships we buy them from. right? Our dentists and medical professionals that we visit, who's our primary care physician, do we like them? Do we not like them? The gyms we go to, all of this is based on that end user experience. And surprise, surprise, we will pay more for a better experience. People will pay more for a luxury version of fill in the blank, a luxury vehicle, a luxury vacation, because the experience is so much better. So, again, it's not always about cutting costs and being more efficient and driving profits this way, but it also allows the MSPs to charge more for that better end user experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be the MSP who provides the Mercedes-Benz experience and serves nothing but businesses who knows the value of that experiences and is willing to pay for it. Well, we're talking a lot about tools, Eric. Let's just sort of stay in that zone here as we transition to your tip of the week, which has to do with a tools issue around a market opportunity that we actually spoke about a little bit on a fairly recent episode of the podcast.
We certainly did, Rich. And all too often, and those of you that are subscribers and listeners and viewers of the podcast, probably trying to guess what is it that they've talked a lot about recently. So I'll just let it out of the bag. It's not AI. It's not security. Well, it is security and security adjacent. I will say that, but it's not. We've been talking a lot about AI and cybersecurity in general, but I want to talk about a segment of devices that do impact security and oversight and compliance for MSPs, Rich, and that is IoT devices, the Internet of Things. Remember when the IoT was like the big news? Remember when everybody was, scrambling around, identifying, well, these IoT devices are basically dumb devices. They can be controlled and used to attack and infiltrate networks and things like that. I remember that years ago being like this topic of conversation. Then we kind of started moving into just, cybersecurity and threats and things like that, kind of assuming that IoT was part of it. But I really want to focus on MSP's responsibility in terms of including identifying these IoT devices. These are network connected devices that, in some folks' opinion, as MSPs, we do not monitor or measure, or maybe that's outside of the box. That's not my responsibility. Well, guess what? Anything that has the potential to negatively impact the operation or the uptime or the security of infrastructure or business applications or services, that definitely should be on an MSP's radar. So I'm going to talk about IoT devices and IoT management today, Rich. And as we know, there is no end in sight to the growth of these devices. I mean, I wish we could poll the audience and say how many, in the comments, let us know how many IoT connected devices do you have in your home? I'm not going to share the number of IoT devices we have here at the Simpson household, Rich, but it is not insignificant. It is not insignificant when you count cameras and phones and iPads and streaming devices and TVs and the refrigerator that connects to the internet for who knows what, right? I mean, it's a lot. So how do we add value and charge for managing and maintaining these IoT devices, because they are directly connected to the infrastructure in our clients' locations? So 3 quick tips. Use specialized IoT management platforms. We've spoken about some on the show before, Rich. We see some of the top 3 kind of PSA, RMM, all-in tool vendors moving in this direction, adding functionality. We know other folks that specialize in just monitoring and managing these IoT devices, but you need a tool that has capabilities beyond what we typically consider our RMM tools role. I'm going to identify things that have an IP address when I scan the network, and then tell me what that thing is. I mean, infrastructures are mature enough now that the typical types of hardware that's connected point infrastructure, our typical monitoring and management tools can identify, oh, that's a firewall, that's a PC, that's a laptop, that's this, that's a wireless access point, because we're transmitting that information back. These tools can see that, but not with all IoT devices, cameras, locks, you name it. Anything that's in there, specifically in like verticals, like dental practices or healthcare. Like, what are all the devices that are connected to those systems that you may not be thinking about? So find a tool that can help identify what all those devices are, so that you know what they are, not just simply it's an IP address. You've got to go hunt and find, using the data that's available. Because I've tried that, Rich. There are some devices in my house that took me a while to figure out, is that this thing or that thing, because I can't really tell, right? It takes a lot of work to do that. So find a platform that can help you do that. Segment these devices in the network, right? So make sure that you are separating them into their own VLANs and segments, so that you can manage them better from a network segmentation perspective. And then, third tip, Rich, conduct regular audits and monitoring, and make sure that you're identifying those, I'm going to call them, dumb IoT devices. Dumb, not because they're not intelligent, but from the perspective of, there's no easy way to manage the security and update them and password manage. Like the first series of cameras that everybody went nuts over, I mean, they were definite targets for bad actors because they were very dumb, and so make sure that you're identifying these things and you're replacing these IoT devices with things that you recommend, that you can manage. And of course, make sure that you're letting your client know that this is a vulnerability for them, and you're going to manage it for them, and you're going to charge them for it. And when you present it that way in this day and age, Rich, there's going to be a very small percentage of clients say, no, we don't want you to manage and secure those IoT devices. Thank you very much, but we'll just sign the waiver letting you off the hook. We know that that's not the best solution.
Yeah, whatever you think about IoT and IoT solutions, and that's what we talked about on that recent episode of the show, that there are more and more solution providers out there who are building IoT solutions for their clients. Even if that's of no interest to you, I've long referred to IoT as both a defensive and an offensive opportunity or challenge for MSPs. And the defensive piece of that is that every IoT device is a potential security vulnerability. Whether you are interested in those devices or not, you're going to be on the hook to a great extent if that device is the avenue through which an attacker gets into a environment that you support. So you have to be paying attention to these devices that are on the network, like it or not. And to the degree that you're doing that, and especially if you're using tools fit for that purpose, it is very much within your rights to charge for that. And that's the offensive opportunity, is you can be making more money doing this thing that you really need to do for your clients. Totally on board with you that, you really need to be looking for a tool that is designed for this workload. More or less any decent network management and monitoring platform will, as you said, show you got a bunch of stuff on the network here. But most of the time, most of those products will force you to figure out, well, what is all of this stuff? And back in the day, Eric, you'll remember there was this phenomenon called cable tracing, where you would just literally kind of follow the cable until it ends, and then you get an answer to the question. It's like, in the age of Wi-Fi, you can't even do that anymore. So you need something that will not only discover these devices, but classify them. And then the only thing I would add to the kind of functionality requirements that you put on the list there, you were talking about how the MSP needs to audit the environment now and again and see what is new on the network since the last time you looked. There are tools out there that will proactively tell you something just connected, something new is on the network now. And if it's a tool that's sort of built for that IoT use case, it will actually tell you what it is. There are 10 new smart bulbs just connected to this network. And so you don't actually have to wait until the next audit to discover that. For me, that's a very appealing feature to get that alert when something IoT related connects to the network like that.
Yeah, Rich, you just reminded me of all the smart bulbs and lighting we've got in the house as well. We've got some stereo receivers that connect to the internet too. I mean, it's just like everything has a wireless, chip in it now. It's hard to keep up with.
Well, if you need to kind of check out how good your current tool set is at handling IoT devices like that. Like you were saying, Eric, some of the big names, Kaseya in particular, at their event in the spring, said that we need to rethink the meaning of the word endpoint in the managed services world. Now it's not just a PC or a server; it could be a mobile device, it could be a cloud app, or it could be an IoT device, and you need one tool that can manage all this. So see if you're using something that is set up to handle IoT. And if you're not, you need to start investigating tools that can help you with that so you don't get surprised and your customers don't get surprised. And so with that, we are going to take a quick break, Eric. When we come back on the other side, you and I will be joined by Christoph Reglot, CEO of Cipher, the company that is sponsoring this episode of the show, as well as Lisa Bryant, the Chief Revenue Officer of Cipher. We're going to have an interesting question or a conversation with them about penetration testing, which is something that they do, about integrations, because they are announcing an integration with Acronis, as I mentioned before. So lots of interesting stuff to talk about with the top brass at Cipher. Stick around for that. We are going to be right back. Part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, sponsored by Cipher. And in fact, here in our Spotlight interview segment, we are joined from two senior executives at Cipher, Lisa Bryant, she is the Chief Revenue Officer, and Christoph Reglot, he is the CEO. Lisa, Christoph, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rich.
For having us.
So before we dive into the conversation here, I would love to introduce both of you to our audience. I'll start with you, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about Cipher.
So Lisa Bryant, Chief Revenue Officer, very excited to be bringing deep learning pen testing, AI-driven for all of the MSPs out there so that you all are able to find ways to increase your client security, increase MRR, and also increase support hours. So looking forward to talking about that.
Awesome. And Christoph, tell folks a little bit about yourself.
I'm only the CEO, man. This is it. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Cipher. We're very excited. We really have a good solution for MSPs. Finally, they've been waiting for it. For something that they can afford, something that they need to use. And we're glad to talk to you today. And, we're going to present that to them.
Okay. Well, let's get to it. I see statistics, I see validation all the time that demand for penetration testing is growing in the marketplace. But what do you think is behind that? What's driving that increased demand?
It's very simple. It's security. The pen test. So we've been going from, an era, and it's still going, and it will never stop, to where we put, EDR and, basically defense mechanism into network, right? So every MSP in the world do that. They have to do that. They put in a virus, they put in EDR, they put all kind of mechanism. But at one point of time, you have to test those defense mechanisms to see if it works, right? To see if they actually react, to see if they forgot something on any workstation. This is where the pen testing comes through, right? It is not vulnerability testing, so it just doesn't knock on the door, right? It's just actually try to open the door and see in every workstation and everything that you have in your network or outside the network, if there is any exploitable things that resides in there that needs to be closed and being treated. So the pen test is a very necessary step into a network, into the network view, basically. You cannot have your entire network if you don't do the pen test. You have some of it, but not all of it. So this is basically what a pen test is for. Non-vulnerability testing, completely different.
So Lisa and Christoph, um, I work with a lot of MSPs, as you guys do as well, and I'm struck by just how many MSPs may not be taking advantage of pen testing today. So, how big of an opportunity is it for MSPs? And how many of them do you think are really taking advantage of that opportunity right now?
Not enough, I can tell you that. They are not enough because I think, they might be scared about it, because pen test is a big thing, right? It's pen testing, right? No vulnerability. And so, but it is you know, they have to do that. The clients, demand it, compliance, demand it, and they're not taking advantage of it. The reason is, I believe, Eric, is because it's been too cumbersome in the past to do a pen test. It has been too expensive to do pen test. And basically the MSP, not to their fault, they say, well, too cumbersome, I got to make an appointment, I got to have a red team come in, it's got to be, scheduled and stuff like that. Just too cumbersome, right? And the price behind it, they can resell it because they don't make any money. And basically there is no value to them. There is a security value, but no value to them. So I think that's what the struggle was. That's why when we developed Cipher, that we made it to it's very easy to implement. I mean, it is seriously, I don't want to tell you that, but it's very easy to implement, right? And they actually don't have to schedule anything. They can implement it whenever they want. They can run it whenever they want. Okay. And the price tag on it, okay, we're going for like $100 per pen test per billion. It's extremely, inexpensive. So now they have the way, to actually increase the security to the client, deploy it, whenever they want, run it, whenever they want, can be completely continuous almost more, or, on schedule, however they want to do it, and actually can make money on the far side. So they buy it, for $100 for us, they can resell it for 150 to 100. But where they really make the money, and I think they're starting to understand that, is the remediation, because the pen test is going to show problem in the network. They're going to have to go fix that. Not just once. It's just because if they run it, continuously, every single month, they're going to have to go fix it. So on the same client they have, now they're increasing, the revenue per client. And what's important is that they're positioning themselves as to an MSSP, someone that is, competent, is, doing cybersecurity for their clients, and the client get also an added value because now the MSP is actually testing, the network to make sure everything is in place. That's really the essence of it.
Yeah, and I think also there's the benefit of the actionable insights, right? So vulnerability testing, I ask MSPs, MSSPs, are you guys doing vulnerability testing? They say yes. Great. Are you guys doing anything with the results that you're finding? No. You know why? Because there's so much that they're overwhelmed. They don't know where to begin with it. They get so much back. Whereas now we're giving them prioritized actionable insights into the items that need to be remediated immediately. These are the exploitable vulnerabilities. So now they've gone from being overwhelmed to a solution now that has streamlined that entire process. So when you take that, and that's why I started out and I said, number one, client security, right? That's the first and foremost. They have the opportunity to run this continuous on the client network. To not do that at this price point with what we're able to provide is doing a client a complete disservice, quite honestly. Second of all, I talked about the MRR. They can increase that MRR by putting this in continuous on their client network, backing up that security. And then the third piece being the hours of remediation. We saw tremendous remediation hours for clients. And I'll give you, I'll be so bold to tell you, I just happen to put this together for you. 27-person CPA firm, which by the way, has to have a pen test because the FTC's most recent rules say they need to be continuously monitoring the network. So 27-person CPA firm, let's put in, the MRR 350 for the pen test. And that's high. I wouldn't even put it in at 350. Go ahead, figure out your hours that you're going to run it. Basically on this hour, I'm going to go ahead and tell you over a 12-month period on a pay-as-you-go, it's almost $5,000 a month, right? So take that almost $10,000 for that client, multiply it out by 10 clients you're running continuous, you've almost got $85,000 in new business directly to your bottom line on organic growth. I mean, everybody should be pen testing.
It's really pretty simple, you know. They're making it way too complicated, you know.
So,
Seriously, you know, like, but what about it? Like, guys, I said, it's actually pretty simple. You're making it way too complicated. You know?
Yeah, to that point, because we're talking both about continuous execution in a way that isn't excessively complex and isn't excessively expensive, but we're also talking about the opportunity. As I understand it, from a regulatory compliance standpoint, more and more often regulations are requiring pen tests, either continuous vulnerability management or regular pen tests. So, I mean, this is something that you're going to need to be doing for a lot of your clients anyway, correct?
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, multiple countries already made it mandatory to have a pen test, and the US is starting to get there also because, you know, people are like, well, you know, I said, guys, again, you're making it too complicated, okay? Pen test is the only way for you to test, you know, your defense mechanism. It's as simple. So test it and make money on what you're testing. I mean, it's no, you know, it's no big deal, right? It's and it really helps the client, and it helps also the insurance company because, you know, when they know that you're running a pen test, they know that you're aware of all the exploits, you know, within the network, and they are better prepared to accept, you know, a hacker that will come in. So they're taking less risk. Yeah. Why do you think they're going to mandatory, you know, pen testing? For that reason, it's a money thing. It's not because, you know, they want a client to be more secure. They do, because if their client is more secure, they're going to pay less money, you know, when they get hacked, or because they're going to be the hacked, you know, less than often, you know. So that's what it is. It's pretty simple, really. You know, very, very simple.
Christophe, you're using the word simple quite a bit, which I'm sure is going to get the MSPs excited to hear this, because traditionally penetration testing has been very complicated. It's been expensive. We talked about this. It's typically not been something that can be integrated into an existing MSP's other platforms and things like that. And that's really what I want to focus on, is that last bit. What makes integration between a pen test solution and the rest of an MSP's security and management platforms so important? I mean, this is probably like table stakes anymore for MSPs. They want the integration, but can you share from your perspective why it's so important from this perspective?
Well, it's important because, first of all, you know, the MSP, you know, they also have some responsibility, not contractually, but, you know, when they're in charge of someone's network, you know, and they get hacked, you know, guess where the finger points, you know, it's like, wow, you told me, you know, I was going to be secure, right? So they have to be able to show the client that says, I've done everything in my power, okay, to secure you. I've done the defense part of it. I've done the attack side of it. We've checked everything. It is nice, right? I've done everything I can. After that, you know, there is so much thing that you can do. We have MSP actually, as a matter of fact, right now, that are actually integrating, you know, Cypher into the cybersecurity stack. It's completely integrated. So when they go see, you know, one of the clients, like, okay, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know, the workstation, blah, blah, blah. And that includes, you know, our cybersecurity stack, you know, antivirus, CDR, and, you know, pen testing. And that's how they do it, because it is simple for them, because they control the pen test. So like you were saying, they don't have to call anybody, you know, they don't have to schedule it. They don't have to say, you know, it's not a big deal. They install it. Our install right now for a pen test on the VBox is about 10 minutes. Imagine that. 10 minutes, you got your, it was like 20 minutes, we reduced it to 10 minutes right now. So you got your VBox in already, you got your pen test, your attack brief ready at the client, you configure, you know, what IP address you want on the portal, it's over, it's done. All you have to do now is just sit and then look at it, you know, doing this stuff, right? When it's done in stuff, you can actually go ahead and do your report. You take your report, you go to your client and says, this is a problem, I need to remediate because, you know, insurance company or whatever, right? I need to fix what's wrong. And then you make your money, and then you go on the next month and then do the same. So the MSP that understands that, and a lot of them are starting to understand that, they just include that into their cybersecurity stack. That's it. And for them, they also want to know because, I've been an MSP for a long time too. It's not fair to the MSP, that you're trying to secure your client and the clients, they want any part of it. Well, that's your problem. No, it's not just the MSP problem, it's also the client problem, right? And so you have see a lot of MSP right now saying, no, when you become a client, you have to do this because you have to do your part. I have to be able to pen test you. You have to be able to see, what's going on in the network. And that's the only way I can see it, right? So that's how they're pushing it. And when I did it, that's how I'll tell you how simple it is. When I did it and go see, clients like CPA kind of stuff like that, the only thing I told them, Eric and Rich, the only thing I told them is, guys, I put all the defense mechanism. I need to see what's going on right now in the network. I'm blind. I have to be able to see the exploit that I can't see right now. It's like, well, how are you going to do that? I'm like, I'm going to put a pen test, and that's going to show me the exploit, and I'm going to be able to fix that. Not one said no.
Right.
Not one said no. Because who would be stupid enough to say, oh, I got zero vulnerability on my stuff, or don't fix it, don't look at it, let's put in the hole. No, they're like, sure. Go ahead. And then when I went with my report, what they tell me? I start going after number one. Number two, they're like, Christophe, stop. All I wanted to know is that you're going to fix it. Then you come back and you're going to get my network being secure without, I'm like, I will do that. I'm going to say it again, Eric. That's how simple it is. It is really extremely simple. There is no objection from their clients. They love it because, first of all, it's inexpensive. It's not even a sense of security. It's an added security, major one that they add in the network, helps them with the insurance, with cybersecurity insurance, helps them with the compliancy, helps the MSP, helps everybody. And the MSP completely controls it. So they don't have to talk to us. They don't have to call us whenever they want to do a pen test. They have this stack of 10 licenses. They can go and flip-flop the license anywhere they want and be done with it. That's all I have to say, my friend. So this is like, what I'm telling you guys, it's real life things. It's not things that I'm making up. It is real life clients, real life things.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. And it's funny because when I talk to, when I go to, went to CompTIA, stuff like that, I talk to clients and like, yeah, but I'm like, guys, you're making it way, way, way too complicated. It's not that complicated. It's actually pretty, I'm not going to say it again. You know what I want to say.
So on the topic of integrations, the announcement you folks are making more or less now, as this episode of the show is airing, is a new integration with Acronis. So tell folks a little bit about what that integration is, what it enables, how it benefits MSPs.
Lisa, you take over. Terrell talking.
Oh my goodness. So we are so excited about this partnership with Acronis. It is going to bring the pen testing directly to their platform. You're able to see all your actionable insights directly there within the system. All the devices it's going to actually ticket by device. That's insane. But beyond excited about this integration.
I got to tell you, Acronis design integration, it is phenomenal. It is a good integration.
Yeah. So we are also announcing it'll be internal and external at the time that this recording is released. So to the dev team and to everybody, we are going to be at MSP Global with Acronis. They're doing a sales village. We're going to be rolling this out. So it's coming to an Acronis system, for you right there. Super excited about that.
Yeah. From Acronis, they can launch the pen test, manage the pen test, anything they want directly from Acronis.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah.
So congratulations on that. I did not realize, we had been talking, for a bit about the external component. And now I'm really excited to hear that you are announcing that as well. How important is it to have both of those capabilities, when we're trying to elevate the security posture of our clients, both internal and external? For those of your MSPs that are listening that may not understand the nuances there, can you take a minute and just kind of define what that is and why it's so important?
Sure. So internal pen test is for the MSP that's not techy a little bit. They understand that This is the inside of your firewall. So this is where all your, client reside and everything, right? Workstation, printers, phone system, whatever you have. Okay, that's the internal pen test. This is where things happen, right? Because when hacker acts, they hack, internally, and then they laterally move. That's what happens, right? Really important. You have to test internal. External is the other side of your firewall. That's going to be on the WAN side of your firewall. So now we're going to pen test, the outside of your firewall and see if there is an opponent firewall. Okay. But we're not going to stop there. That's what took us a little time, because we didn't want to come, with just, pen testing the firewall, because I do see value in there, but it's limited. So we're going to pen test, web apps. We're going to pen test your web apps. We're going to pen test anything on Amazon. We're going to pen test your website, and we're going to pen test your firewall. So all that's going to be pen testing. So basically, with Cypher, you're going to pen test your entire ecosystem of a client. Outside, inside, everywhere. Even inside, if you have web apps inside, you can actually right now pen test the web apps that are hosted inside your network. So if you bought the software that runs on an intranet, you'll be able to pen test that. You can actually pen test that today. So that's why we're bringing with the outside pen testing is both sides of the firewall, the LAN side and the WAN side. Complete solution, basically. Okay, so at phone ringings. But this is what's happening. It's a complete solution.
So when you ask about the scope of opportunity for that, massive. I won't even tell you, the dev team is so tired of hearing from me. They would like to lock me up and throw me in a lake somewhere. And I've been relentless. And they do. They would love to throw me in a lake. Chains on my hands. I've been relentless in pursuit of this, because I'm the one, and again, I'm going to take you back to the very beginning. We did our research, and it always sounds cliche to say, oh, it was built for us, by us. This was 1,600 conversations later, and taking that information back to the dev team and pushing, and just us doing what we needed to do, the external piece. And when people talk about external pen tests, they mean many different things. So in bringing that back, Christoph said, okay, well, we're going to solve that, and we're going to give them all of it. So it's the entire ecosystem. So I'm not in the lake, thankfully. And the external and internal pen test is going to be released in time for MSP Global in Barcelona with Acronis. We're live in the system. We have behind that even more to come, because we are trying to bring Cypher to all of the places where we live and work. We all work in different ways, and we're trying to, sure, you can always find us on our website, but we want to make sure that we're bringing the solution to all of the distribution channels where everybody works. So I'm very excited about it. So internal pen test, meaning the whole ecosystem. I did it. Yes.
Yeah, so much of what an SMB does is external by that definition right now. And it really doesn't feel like a complete pen test solution unless you have that component in there. So it is awesome that you've got that out there from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that you folks will talk about at Cypher about pen testing is that it really should be a collaborative process. So what is important about making pen tests a collaborative process, and what have you folks done to enable that?
And when you're talking about collaborative process, you're speaking of working directly with the client and the MSP, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes, because that, and this is where the rubber meets the road, and you're missing so much opportunity if you are not doing pen testing. The closeness that this brings to you and the stickiness that this gives you with your client is unheard of. I'm out having conversations, and all I hear from MSPs is, oh, should I use it as a prospecting tool? And I'm like, you are missing the boat. Even if you want to boil this down to your top 20 accounts, your top 20, you need to protect, lock down, and have every single one of them running a Cypher pen test, because you can't tell me, and I'm going to whisper this, everybody's QBRs, they're not really good. And if they tell you they're good, they're lying. They're not good. So now you actually have something where you're not going in and trying to sell something, because they know they don't want to meet with you every quarter because you're going to come sell them something. Now you have clients that you can have actionable insights of things at not just things, exploitable vulnerabilities that you've protected from getting inside their network. And you can now sit down on a monthly meeting. This is information that is roll-up information that any board that has any sense would want to look at. This is that information. And speaking of the sense to look at it, we made the reporting. You don't have to be technical. We have an executive summary report that gives you the score. So you've got the roll-up directly for that board member to look at. Your host findings report goes ahead and feeds the information to your engineering team so that they know. And by the way, spoon feeding the recommendations on how to fix and remediate, Cypher's doing that. So you can go directly in the software, hit the remediations button, and see exactly the steps to remediate. So no more hunting and pecking and looking all around. That's a big deal. And then our detailed findings report is going to give you all the credentialing and the cracking and all of the attacks and what Genesis was successful in doing. Genesis is the AI. So, and it's a hemp.
Yeah, you make a good point. When you have a QBR with your client, right? You're trying to have an interesting conversation to promote, what is it that you're doing for them, right? And if all the MSP have a QBR about, Microsoft licensing and, the antivirus and stuff like that, what kind of a QBR is that? So how different does it make you, talking about the same thing that your competitor is going to talk about, okay? And what makes you really different? Nothing, because you're talking about the same, Office 365, and I sold you a printer, and it's the same thing. There is no value into that, because your competitor can do the same thing. When you start talking about, how you remediate, the exploits, vulnerability that you find and stuff like that, that makes you a cybersecurity person. That makes you someone who takes care of your client network. That makes the discussion on your QBR, I said, hey, listen, we find you those exploits. We have our engineer, work on it. We fix that. Now, if we look at, because we also give you a snapshot of past report, right? So you can actually compare the network, what it was, 3 days ago, or 15 days ago, 2 months ago. And so, we see a change on the network and things like that. Now you're having an interesting and rich, conversation with your client that your competitors can have, because he doesn't do that. And he has not done, the pen testing with them because you've done it. And he can talk about that because you're the only one who's doing that. So you're eliminating your competitor right away, right? But if you guys keep fighting, and I'm talking to those guys who are trying to make it so complicated that it blows my mind, it's like, guys, if you make it so that you are the MSSP, you are the expert in cybersecurity because you have those QBR, because you have those items we talk about, with Cypher pen testing, now that makes you sticking with your client. Your client's going to look at you and be like, man, this man got my back. And now you start talking about, antivirus, that you can get for like $2.55, and your computer is like $2.59. I mean, who cares, right? And you're talking about the same thing anyway. So now you have something that is really important for your client and you to talk about in every QBR. That's what makes you different than your competitor. Otherwise, what are you going to talk about? Amazon, Azure, and then what? Antivirus and what, printer, and what else are you going to talk about? You're saying the same thing. So
and that's why the clients don't want to.
That makes you different.
Yeah, that's why you're pulling teeth for those QBRs. And you want to talk about somebody who wants to be front and center with those results and be able to report that up, the flagpole to leadership. This is that type of information. So the priority of the information becomes number one. Yeah. The other thing that I did not share, that if this doesn't do it, I don't know what would. We know the power of this because we've seen it in Christoph's MSP. We've seen it with our partners. We know that we don't need a contract. That's how confident we are with this solution. There's no need for a contract because when you're pulling in revenue, like the numbers that I just shared with you, by the way, that's 10 accounts. And that was also taking out the tiny little bit that it costs to run Genesis every month. So, no contract. I don't get it. Everybody should be running to get it.
Yep. So they're starting. They're good. That's good. They're getting the point. But they need to. If I have to leave them with one message, is that, guys, the market is not going to wait for you. Be aware of that. And the market is moving at a very, very fast pace right now, right? and it's not going to wait for you. So by the time, you're thinking about, how the hell are you going to get your first client doing that? I'm like, how am I going to get my first client doing that? How are you going to get that? I don't know. You go talk to him and tell him, hey, I'm going to test, your network. I'm going to see if your defense mechanism works. And then if it doesn't work, or if I see something wrong, I'm going to fix it. They're going to be like, okay, that's what it's going to cost you. Okay. That, period. I mean, and the market's moving fast right now. And the MSP that get it, they're moving very, very fast. And if those new MSP don't move that fast, they don't use a program, they're going to be, like I said before, now they're going to talk to the competitor who's going to come and say, well, we can test your network, we can do this, we can do that. And they're going to be left with what? Selling HP printer, so they have to move.
Analysis paralysis. Analysis.
It's what it is. It's analysis paralysis, Yeah.
They're the same ones right now that are still doing break fix that should have switched over to MSSP. So now we're going to have folks that are either going to make the jump to MSSP or they're not.
Yeah.
So you have a feature that lets users choose specific exploits to test. Can you share a good use case example for that feature, and how rare is that functionality in the pen test market?
Well, so it depends. We have a lot of exploit, and the exploit that we let them choose are the most dangerous one, right? So they can see if they want to run it or not. They may have I'll pay an example of my video here. They may have like a station that is critical to where it would be dangerous to run a reverse shell, maybe. And they say, well, I'm going to pass a reverse shell on this computer, right? And so they don't have to choose this exploit, right? So those are the things they can manipulate, and see how they want to run the pen test. If they want to run a true pen test for compliancy, then my advice would be to just run everything, and see where the chip fall, right? Genesis is very safe, right? So you breaking something is extremely, very, very extremely rare, right? It's not going to probably happen. But if you feel that you have something that is extremely important and you don't want to even try it, then you can choose your exploit and disable an exploit or two or whatever. And we give you a list of exploit, right? The most dangerous one. The rest, we just run it, and then you can choose whatever exploit you want to run. You can choose if you want to run a brute force if you want to. Brute force takes longer because we go after password and things like that, so it's very intense on the GPU. But you can choose if you want to run it or not, and you can choose to run it maybe once a month, and then the rest of the time don't run it, or it's completely modular. I mean, you can run your pen test from like 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday. You can run it continuously or anything you want. To me, with my experience, I like to run it continuously because I see the pen test as a camera, and I want to know, when I have my client says, I want to know what's going on at every point of time, because if I run it, from, let's say, September 1st to September 5th, I'll have a snapshot, but what do I know about September 15th? I don't know. Something may have happened to network, which usually does, and I have no idea, what's going on. So if I run all the time, then I can get my alerts and be like, oops, something pop up. For example, I had one of my tech, go install, a new laptop, a new desktop, forgot to configure it properly. It shows it's got 3 or 4 exploits, in there. I'm going to see it right away and be like, hey, you forgot this, you really need to go and fix it, right? So that's the value of it too. Run it continuous, is the value. When I mean continuously, I don't mean like everybody else saying that. I mean, it runs continuously, like every second of every day. Then it never stops, and it goes into loops, and it keeps searching, you keep looking for things, right? And that's really a true measure of your network, stature, basically. It's really nice, very nice tool, very nice tool.
So that's actually kind of a good example. One of the things I wanted to ask about actually is, features in a pen test solution that you should be looking for when you're evaluating your options out there, and maybe, things that an MSP in our audience wouldn't necessarily know to look at, like that ability to target a specific exploit is a great example. Continuous pen testing is another great example. What are maybe 1 or 2 or 3 other things that you would encourage folks in the audience to look for when they're evaluating pen test solutions?
Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. I've seen around, uh, people saying they sell pen tests because if you go on the internet, it says pen test, everybody does pen tests, right? They don't. Okay, pen test has a definition of a pen test. Okay, you have to run a pen test from a single point of start, right? So when you start, people that say I'm going to run a pen test, and we're going to install, things, on your workstation that's going to run a pen test, not a pen test. That's a workstation discovery, or something like that. I don't know what they call it, but probably is a workstation discovery, which does a good job of discovering what's on the workstation, like the map drive, and stuff like that, the user and, memory and stuff like that. There's a good job for that, but it's not a pen test, okay? The pen test has to mimic a hacker. And a hacker doesn't install himself, when he starts searching to a workstation. It comes from a single point, right? And then it's laterally moved to everywhere. Okay, that's the definition of a pen test. Okay, so that's what they have to look for also. Okay, they have to make sure, because if they go out and sell a pen test to the client for cybersecurity insurance or compliancy, and what they run is not a pen test, and so it has a pen test, now that's a problem for them. It's going to be a big problem for them because they're the one who's supposed to check and make sure it is a pen test. So once again, I'll tell you, I see people that say, yeah, I'll send you an email when I run a pen test. You don't run a pen test with an email. I can tell you that. I know what it takes to run a pen test. I know what it takes to have exploit. I know what it takes, to this. It's very heavy. Pen test is a very serious thing. It's very serious. I mean, it's a serious tool, So we have to really, gauge everything so the MSP don't make any mistakes. We have to really frame it so that it's mistake-free, right? So they can run it themselves, but it's a serious tool. That's why before it was run by ethical hackers, and it's still run right now by, people that have hackers and can run a pen test. Cypher made it with the AI so that the MSP can install it. Cypher going to still run the pen test because it's third party, right? They can run their own pen test, so Cypher is going to run it. But it's a serious tool. So when I see, people prancing around and be like, I'll send you an email, when they run a pen test, I'm like, no, it's not a pen test, no. And then so that's what they have to look for, okay? What they have to look for also is that, exploit, if they have a good sense of exploit, how is it run, and, the safeguard, behind it. That's what they have to look for in the pen test, right? The AI, what differentiates us is that we're not scripted. The AI runs the pen test. So, for example, if I find, in enumeration a port, port 21, I'm gonna, find, it's an FTP server. I'm going to find a vulnerability for it. The AI might decide that the exploit here, vulnerability is good, but it might also see there is code on exploit number 2 over there that may, affect, that vulnerability. And that's why the AI is so powerful, is because when you run a script, you're going to be like, well, port 21 FTP, this is a vulnerability, this is the exploit, we attach them, that's scripted, and that's it, right? The AI might be like, yeah, I'll attach this one, but that one over there is code that can actually affect this one. So let's look at both of them, right? That's where Cypher, really shines, because it allows, to have like a true pen test, and something that keeps evolving, right? Not something that is scripted and in 10 years is going to do the same, vulnerability and stuff like that. It is evolving, So if we put, more exploit and stuff like that, the AI might be like, hey, the new exploit you find, I can see for that vulnerability also that it might work and with that exploit or that exploit. So, and it does it so fast, right? That the human can follow that. So that's what making it inexpensive, because AI, runs the thing. That's what once you mentioned the question about what to look for. So be careful, again, you go on the internet, you talk to people, say, we're running a pen test. Like, no, you have to educate yourself. What is a pen test? It's from a single source that you install on a bridge, and then the pen test that it itself, discovered by itself, and it does the same thing that a hacker would do. Anything else, not a pen test. And be careful when the insurance, say, show me the pen test you ran, and you show them this. It's like, no, that's not qualified as a pen test, sir. What they told me was, well, I don't care what they told you. You're supposed to know what a pen test is. So,
and Cypher's Genesis were built on the NIST 800-115. So,
yeah. We build out of the NIST. So basically it's what the NIST says, what a pen test look like. That's what Genesis does. Yeah.
So you spoke a little bit ago about the tremendous confidence that you have in Cypher and Genesis to the point where you're not requiring long-term contracts and commitments from your partners. What other attributes beyond that should MSPs look for in a pen test partner?
Well, I mean, I'll let Lisa answer that. I'll just put to on it. If if you have a good product, if you have a good pen test, okay, the results are gonna show, right? And to me, I don't feel that I have to, make them sign a contract, to block them for the next 36 months, because I'm afraid that, they're not gonna like my pen test. Cypher pen test is really good, and they're gonna love it, and I know that, and it's gonna show every month, what's happening to the client and what's going on, and it's gonna help the client, it's gonna help the MSP, and they're gonna both the client's gonna make money because they're gonna avoid, some remedy with hackers. MSP gonna make money because they're gonna have to remediate all that. So it's really it's a win-win, situation for all three parties, for Cypher and the client. And also, we do not talk to the clients. We completely removed. I don't want to know the clients. I don't want to talk to the clients, and that's their clients. And that's why, we give them the key. It says, go and install the attack bridge, do your client, everything is private, and have at it. Yeah. So they don't have to worry about, I'm going to have a red team come in and this is my client, they're going to have my client and stuff like that. Nope. Don't want to know it. Come on.
Channel only. I think that's very important. There's no need when you're sitting in front of a client to need to know the IP count, right? You can give ballpark numbers. It's a very simple solution. They can decide how they want to monetize it. We are able to share with them vehicles that we use for the monetization of it. And like I gave you one just off the cuff. I mean, there's quite a few, and the revenue on the remediation side, and that's really where it's at. So, and again, it just brings you so much closer to your client. Christophe had made mention the licensing, one license per VLAN. We don't police VLANs, and we all know that, if you need to get out of Alcatraz, get a good engineer to row the boat. So if they want to, run the ceiling up a little bit more on that, we're not policing it. We're just not going to have anybody, come back and say, hey, I tried to put X amount on, but we'll guarantee up to that one VLAN. So if they want to get a little crazy, they can.
Great stuff. Lisa, Christophe, very interesting conversation about a very important topic. I would say a more nuanced topic than, I certainly realized going into the conversation. I'm sure that's true for a lot of folks in the audience. For the folks in the audience who want to learn more about Genesis, about Cypher, about either of you, where would you point them?
Cypher.ai is our website. So best way to find us is on that website. And click the form. You can go ahead and schedule the request for a demo right then and there. Also, just to make sure that everybody is aware, we do a 14-day trial. We have a timeline of touch points through that trial process so that we're able to, be supportive. But there is a 14-day trial that's available.
Yeah. So on the trial, we're going to help you, set it up. We're going to show you everything there is to know about the pen test, how it works, how you get your reports, how you interpret, this, data and stuff like that, right? After that, you try for 14 days, and then Lisa calls you and see what you want to do. We make it very easy, right?
Simple.
I'm not going to say
simple. That is a recurring theme here. And I will quickly point out for folks who are new to the name, the brand, we're talking Cypher here. That is SXIPHER. SXIPHER.ai is the website, Cypher. Lisa, Christophe, thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed the conversation. Now, with that, Eric and I are going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to share some thoughts about this conversation we just had on pen testing. Have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around, folks. We are going to be right back. back to part 3 of this sponsored bonus episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, brought to you by Cipher. And thanks once again to Christoph and Lisa for joining us on the sponsored episode of the show for that very interesting conversation. You know, if you've been around as long as we have, Eric, it's been interesting to watch the evolution of penetration testing in the channel generally, and with MSPs in particular. It was not that long ago that was such an expensive job, a complicated, expensive job, that very few MSPs certainly had the skills in-house to do it themselves, and they couldn't even really afford to partner with somebody else on behalf of their clients, because it was going to be like a $40,000-$50,000 engagement typically. And so it's been interesting to watch tools come onto the market that have made that something that is much more easy, much more practical for MSPs to do, which is good because there are many regulations out there, and the numbers keep growing, that require the regulated companies to do one of two things. They either need to have a continuous vulnerability management system in place that is continuously looking out for issues that need to be patched, or they need to do a penetration test on a regular basis. A lot of the laws I've seen will typically require an annual pen test. But part of what's really interesting about the Cipher platform is you don't have to wait a year, but they are continuously penetration testing for you, which is kind of huge, actually. So it's just kind of interesting to see how pen testing has become, it has come within reach of pretty much any MSP in our audience as something that they can do and really should therefore be thinking about doing.
Yes, Rich, it's almost like the last bastion of MSP-friendly required services that we need to deliver to our clients, right? I remember the days when, I had my MSP and there were no MSP-friendly channel programs. There were no MSP-friendly pricing for, the tools that we needed. We needed to buy, large numbers of agents, and PSAs were much more costly, and all this stuff. And we've done a really good job to get to the point where today vendors have understood the needs of MSPs. They've changed their programs to support the way that MSPs run their businesses, the way that they bill their clients. They like to be billed as they bill their clients on a pay-as-you-go basis. We've seen a tremendous shift. It is night and day, Rich, from when I had my MSP. We launched that. We were, 2000. We launched the IT practice in '97, and then around 2003 is when we started really thinking about, switching our model to what we call it flat rate IT services. Right? Of course, we were, think a little bit from the future. There were others out there, but we really kind of took this to heart and kind of grew it, even and overcoming these challenges of spending all this money and having to sell all these agents and licenses. So we've gotten to a point now today where, holy cow, it's like telling your kids, oh boy, you think you got it tough. I had to walk to school, uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes on, kind of a thing, right? But the penetration testing solution, like you mentioned, Rich, has always been very, very costly and reserved typically for, some of the most well-heeled clients and folks that had to meet regulatory compliance. And that really kind of took it out of the grasp of, the masses of MSPs out there. You had to be a real mature MSP or an MSSP serving those regulated clients that needed to pay for this stuff and could afford to pay for it. Now, with the solution that was introduced by Cipher and Genesis, it is now an MSP friendly solution, priced friendly to MSPs, easy to deploy, easy to measure, and easy to conduct on more of a continuous recurring basis, which, as you know, Rich, what MSPs love is we love the ability to deliver services and get paid for on a recurring basis, because it increases the value of our organization. The higher percentage of services that we deliver that are monthly recurring or annual recurring, have a positive impact to the multiple and the strike price when we get ready to sell our businesses.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's a nice development. There are fewer and fewer technologies, end user needs, workloads where there is not an MSP friendly solution of some kind out there. And Cypher is a great example of that phenomenon, reaching penetration testing as well. So we thank the folks from Cypher for joining us on the show and for sponsoring this episode of the show. We have time for just one last thing, folks. And this story comes to us from Memphis, Tennessee. It's another episode in the ongoing annals of criminal genius. And I'll say it right up front. There's actually nothing funny about the particular crime at issue here. There was a shooting in Memphis. The victim died. The U.S. Marshal Service was on the hunt for a suspect believed to be responsible for that crime. They got a tip on where they could find this person. They entered that suspect's home, and the suspect was not there, which was, of course, disappointing, until he quite literally fell into their laps. He had been hiding in the attic, Eric, and I guess I don't know, the floor of the attic, the ceiling above the kitchen, it wasn't quite adequate to handle this guy's weight. He literally fell through the ceiling into the kitchen, where the marshals were waiting for him. And, all's well that ends well. They got their suspect. The suspect was not injured by the fall. No one was actually injured by this. So we everything wound up where it was supposed to. But gosh darn it, hiding in the attic from the marshals did not pay off for this particular criminal.
As you say, Rich, the annals of criminal genius at work in this particular scenario.
And it seems like there will always be another chapter. And we'll track those for you right here on MSP Chat. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the show. We're going to be back with our regular episode on Friday, as we are every week. Until then, I will just remind you, we are both a video and an audio deliverable out there. So if you are listening to the audio version of the show, curious to check us out on video as well, you will find us on YouTube. If you're watching the YouTube edition of the show, but you're into audio podcasts, go to wherever it is you get your audio podcasts, because it's nearly certain you're going to find us there too. And however it is you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. It's going to help other people find and enjoy the show just like you. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. It is edited by the great Riley Simpson. We thank them both very much. They are part of the team with us here at Channel Mastered. They would be happy to help you with a podcast of your own. And podcasts are just one tiny part of what we do for our clients at Channel Mastered. You can learn more about everything we do at www.channelmastered.com. Channel Mastered has a sister organization called MSP Mastered. That is Eric working directly with MSPs on growing and optimizing their business. You can learn more about that enterprise at www.mspmastered.com. So once again, we thank the folks at Cypher for sponsoring the show. We will see you on Friday as we do every week. Until then, folks, please do remember, you cannot spell channel without MSP.